We wanted to show you a few of the upgrades we've made to the boat, and one of them that we use every day is the water maker. It's a Catadyn Power Survivor 40E, and it's typically running in the background most of the day. It runs off the battery bank and the solar panels, 12 volts. We don't have to run an engine or a charger of any sort. It just runs off the battery power, which is great. We can run it anytime we decide we're low on water. It actually operates from the other side of the bulkhead in the bathroom, all except for the flush switch here and the selector for a flush line. But it's here out of the way. It's easy to get to, which is essential because you got to change this pre-filter pretty frequently, every couple of days. And so it's in a nice spot to reach. It's out of the way. It gets a lot of fresh cooling air from the hatch right here, and it doesn't bother anybody. I mounted it with rubber grommets on the wall, so it's very low noise emitting, and it doesn't give us a lot of trouble. So we're in the bathroom now. The water maker is just on the opposite side of the wall from us. You can actually see its 4 mounting holes. I tried to keep all the controls for the water maker right here so you weren't rushing back and forth between bulkhead sides to operate the water maker. So the switch is right here. So to turn on the water maker, we flip the switch and immediately it starts pumping water through the system. It's not quite fresh yet. What we have here is the brine discharge line, and then we have the freshwater testing line here. Let me open this cover up so you can see. The freshwater comes through the filter membrane into this selector, and it takes about 3 minutes before the water is actually coming out clean. At first it's still a little bit salty. So we've just turned on the water maker, and if I taste this right now, yeah, it's still just faintly salty. So you gotta wait about 2.5 to 3 minutes, and then the fresh water coming out will actually be salt-free. And once that happens, then we'd simply switch this selector valve to run the fresh water to deposit it wherever we want it to go. Some people have it set up directly into their holding tank, their freshwater holding tank. Some people pump into jugs. We like to pump into jugs, and then from there we can just pour it into the holding tank or fill our water bottles with it or use it in the boat however we want to. Yeah, so the water's clean and clear now, salt-free. It tastes really good, actually. So the next step is to switch the selector valve and direct the water through this other line into our jugs. I'll show you how we do that. This selector actually runs in a roundabout way down to this, this long line, which we can pull out. And we can put it right into the jug, right there. And then we flip the selector valve up, and it pumps into the water jug. This works pretty well because we can actually close the bathroom door, and the jug is held really tight no matter what the boat's doing, how it's sailing. Once we fill the water jugs, there's just a nifty little spot that happened to work out for 3 jugs right here. They actually fit in nice and tight, and they're completely solid. They can't come out under sail even when it gets rough, and they fit nicely right there. They're easy to get to. While we're in the bathroom here, I'll show you the rest of the additions in this particular room. We've got a tank level gauge for the sewer. Just press this little button and it shows us that we're at a half a tank. It's really handy to have, especially when you're in a bay or something and you need to know what your level is. This yellow cable here is part of our lightning grounding system. It's attached to the shroud chain plate here. And there's another one right over here, even larger, that's attached directly to the mast. Those go down to the substantial grounding plate outside the hull. It's right under the toilet here. I thought long and hard about where to put the safe. The bathroom was just the best spot for it. So we got our key out of the electrical plug. I actually built this safe. It's 3/16 plate aluminum. It's really stout, and it's just a perfect addition to our bathroom. Just below the water maker is the holding tank, which isn't anything fancy in itself. It's just an 18-gallon holding tank. But I decided to add an electric diaphragm pump for the pump out. The boat originally came with a manual pump, which took like 8 minutes of vigorous hand pumping to empty the tank. This, we just flip a switch in about 1.5 minutes, it empties the tank. It's really, really clean and efficient and quick, and we don't have to sit there pumping. So it's nice. I've also replaced all of the hoses in here. Everything's been redone, replaced, new fittings and hose clamps and hoses wherever needed, new valves everywhere. Every seacock on the boat is brand new, all bronze, high quality, through bolted with a flange or a full flange seacock. I found this one little gem here that was just an unused little space, and it is just chock full of spices and canned goods and extra jam. And it's just a little space that I found, but it's made a lot of difference for our cargo. It's bigger than it looks. It actually holds quite a bit of stuff. Another thing that's made a lot of difference for our cargo space is cutting out and removing all of the factory storage pan liners. I'll show you what it is. Originally, this boat came from the factory with really clean, nice looking pan liners. The problem was it didn't fit perfectly tight to the boat. You can see in here there's about 4 inches of wasted space. So I cut this line right here. Originally this pan would have cut down 4 inches from the edge of the hull and ending about 8 inches from the bottom. So there was just this wasted space of an air gap all the way around. And by cutting out the liner and throwing it away, we now just have just the raw fiberglass of the hull right here. But it gave us about 1/3 more space for our usage. I also added in a watertight crash bulkhead right here. There's another one forward of us here, and there's another watertight crash bulkhead even further forward of that. If we hit anything, most likely it's head on, smack into a container, a reef, another boat, and if we breach, you know, 1, 2, or 3 of these, then it gives us an extra little margin of safety for hopefully staying afloat. I also converted all of the lighting on board to LED. These are from Marine Beam, I believe it is. What I like the most about it is you can turn them on. It's just like a pair of candles burning at night. It's just a really nice gentle glow, and then it's got a nice medium setting and a really bright high. It puts out a ton of light. The boat originally came from the factory with a settee to port and a settee to starboard and a big table that folded down in the middle with a leaf in it. The settee to starboard actually had a slide out which turned it into a bed, but the cushions would slide apart in the middle and you'd fall through, and the slide out itself was flimsy and creaky and it just wouldn't stay put. It just didn't work for us. So we turned the same space that the slide out occupied into a permanent bed / day bed. And underneath it, we've got a locker that we keep heavy items in, canned food, anchor, spare chain, things like that. And in front of that is our battery bank. So we've got 440 amp hours in our battery bank. It's lead acid. It's actually 4 golf cart batteries. It works really well for us. And then just behind that is the water tank, the freshwater tank. And also back in the corner is another storage area that I keep the spare fuel filters and oil filters in. The original water tank was plastic, 35 years old, and it tasted like plastic death. So I built a new one out of fiberglass epoxy. It's totally food grade, it has no flavor, it's fantastic. Holds 18 gallons of fresh water, which we top up from the fitting up on the deck. And then it's got a vent hose and then the pickup which goes to the kitchen sink. The battery bank, like we said, is 4 lead acid batteries. We have it fused at the post per ABYC regulations, and we also have a spare fuse here. The battery has a automatic watering system set up, which is really handy. Lead acid batteries do need to be topped up with water fairly regularly. So the hose comes right out here into the food locker, and all we have to do is snap it right in to the hose. I've got a bottle of water right there. And that's it. Almost as an afterthought, I installed a fan right before we left. It's a Hella Marine fan. I wanted to buy a quality fan. Paid like 120 bucks for it. It's still not perfect. It clicks when it's on but not oscillating, and the adjustment for up and down is really fiddly and difficult to work. But It is a fan. It works really well. It doesn't use all that much electricity for a fan, so we're pretty happy with it. We thought about reupholstering the existing cushions, but they were just too old. So we've got brand new cushions and cover on the settee bottom and the back. We've got the LED lighting here as throughout the rest of the boat. Down below here, I put hinges and barrel bolts on the lockers. I also cut the pan out again. It almost doubled our storage space in this particular spot. So we've got a lot more storage there. We've also got the snaps for the lee cloth, which I'll show you in just a moment. That comes in really handy when we're sailing. And we also made brand new curtains on the existing sliders. They work out great, and we really like the gold color a lot better than the stark white with blue trim that the originals had. I made this lee cloth myself. I just whipped it up quick on the sewing machine. I really like the design of it. It's quick and easy to put up, and you can also unhook the ends and just flip it under the settee cushion if you want to get rid of it quickly without taking it down all the way. The other thing I really like about it over some that I've seen is it's really easy to get into. It's low enough that you can just step right over it, climb in. That holds you really secure, but it still keeps your head free enough to feel like you can breathe. We use it occasionally for sleeping when we're sailing underway, and we use it often for storing bags and boxes, computer case, backpacks, that sort of thing when we're heavily loaded. We added a 600 watt inverter, which we've been very happy with. We can power the rice cooker, which is stellar. Also charging the laptop and other things like that. We've got a Victron Energy battery monitor, which is super essential. It not only tells us the battery's state of charge, but the voltage, and most importantly, power in and out in amps. So we can tell how much battery power we're using at a given time, and also how much the solar panels are putting in. Also up here you can see are the 5 solar panel charge controllers. Each one of them has an LED indicator on it, so you can tell which solar panels are actually charging. Right now every single solar panel is putting out a charge, and we're at 87% charge, and we are gaining 7 amps per hour. So lots of information right here. We've also got the masthead tricolor and anchor light, and the waste pump switch. All the other switches, of course, are right here. I installed a little warning light on the propane stove so that it keeps us from accidentally leaving the switch on. Just one more little added safety to keep us from accidentally leaking propane into the boat. We've got our AIS enabled radio. It's a very quality unit by Standard Horizon. It allows us to get the AIS signals from other yachts, and most importantly from larger vessels in the shipping lanes, and it puts it right up on our GPS display. We can see their direction, their speed over ground, their course, and also their closest point of approach, so we know how many minutes until we actually contact with them. We can even reach them directly, just a push of a button. Also for communication, of course, we have the radio. I've got brand new cables running to the mast and a brand new aerial, so a really crisp radio connection there. We've got a distress button on here, which contacts the Coast Guard. We've got our MMSI number programmed into it, so it not only tells the Coast Guard who we are, what size the vessel is, but they can also call our friends and family back home to verify some information. We also have an inReach, which is a Garmin product. It's a satellite communicator that lets us send text messages to friends and family back home. Also get satellite weather reception, which is great. And it's also got a programmed SOS emergency button that we can push, and via satellite it sends an emergency message with again, contact our parents and my brother. And last but not least, we've got our Global Fix Pro 406 megahertz GPS enabled EPIRB. That's a mouthful. but that's the state-of-the-art, best you can get EPIRB. Again, is programmed with our vessel's information, emergency contacts, and it also tells the Coast Guard where we're at instantly. So lots of ways to communicate. We've also got a couple of handheld radios on board that I'll take with me if I go ashore or out on the dinghy or something like that as well. I also installed, almost at the last minute, a pair of USB charge controllers and a cigarette lighter style charger. And we've also got a voltmeter for the emergency backup battery bank, which is about the size battery bank that the boat came with. It's about 100 amp hours, and it's great to have a backup just in case we had a cell blowout in our main bank or something like that. This is the actuator control unit for our Evo 100 Autopilot, which we really like. We've also got a TP22 tiller pilot, which we absolutely hate. It was fine for day sailing. Actually, it sucked for that even. It wasn't worth the money. It was like 600 bucks. This cost us $1,000. This is like 10 times better, not just twice as good. So this is awesome. The compass, which is also a rate gyro, which means it has lots of sensors in it that can tell when it's moving, not just rotating. That's right over here. Our boat came with the classic teak drop boards. There was 4 of them, and I hated them from day one. It's a bad design. They're easy to lose. You take one out, it slides around the cockpit, you step on it, you slip on it. I threw them away, and I built us a door. It's 1-inch mahogany plywood. It's 16 layers of mahogany. It's really close to bulletproof. And then I fiberglassed it on both sides. The outside's painted with 2-part urethane. The inside is fiberglass, but left bare so you can see the nice wood. I even put a nice mahogany edging strip at the top there. And then I added a window, which was, again, kind of a last minute thing. I wasn't sure if I was going to do, but we absolutely love it. It takes this dark area of the boat and puts a window there. You can look out into the cockpit when you want. It lets some light in, and a lot of airflow goes through this little window at night. So it's great. I also added a latch for the Companionway entrance to conform with the Category 2 offshore racing rule, which we're not doing, but they have a lot of really good advice in there. So you can pull this to open the top, and there's also a string on the outside which you can pull to open it from the outside. So nobody ever gets locked in, nobody ever gets locked out, but all you have to do to secure the Companionway is close the door and pull the slider, and it clicks closed. And it's closed. No washing sea could open it or anything like that. And again, to open it, you just pull on it. If for some odd reason someone decided to cut the outside one with a knife, I've also got a provision for opening it. There's a very small hole drilled in the Lexan up here. And I drilled it in such a way that it points exactly at the tip of the slider, and I've got 2 stainless steel plungers in the cockpit that are attached inside the locker secure. So you can take one, it's got a little bend on top, but it kind of looks like an Allen wrench, and you just push that down in and pop it open, and you could gain access to the cabin again if someone cut it. We've also got a barrel bolt to secure the door here. The door has lift-off hinges on the outside, which we'll show you in a later shot. There is a set screw that has to be removed before the door can be lifted off. And also, if the door is closed, these bolts recessed into the frame prevent it from lifting off when the door is closed. And then additionally, we have a pair of barrel bolts that lock the upper slider closed, so when we're sleeping we feel really secure. There's also a little barrel bolt here for locking the slider open. When you have it open in a lot of swell, it can tend to slide back and forth. It could do some nasty damage to somebody's fingers or smack somebody in the face. So we can lock it open when we're in a lot of swell if we need to. We've got the propane stove, which we much prefer over something like an alcohol stove. It puts out a lot of heat instantly. When used properly, they're extremely safe. I also added a hidden shelf compartment underneath the stove. You can't see it even if you climb down and look under. It just looks like the surface. But if you reach up and around, there's a nice little space. We keep our money in, our passports, things like that. I also rebuilt the water pump here for the sink, so that's new. Also all the lines, just to reduce the flavor, plastic coming through. It works really well. I added an access port to the engine cover so you can check the oil easily every time before you start the engine without having to remove the entire engine cover. And I also rebuilt the steps. The steps originally were little bitty things, and the problem was they were offset from the companionway. So you'd want to step down and you'd always land half on the step and half off of it. It was really sketchy and dangerous. So I built nice big steps, and it's much easier to come down the companionway now. I built a new tiller out of a single piece of Purple Heart and then epoxy fiberglass encased it and painted with 2-part urethane, so it's ready to go. And the nice thing is you don't have to worry about any bright work with it, no varnishing or worrying about it. I also installed a tiller extension, which is nice when you have to hand steer for 8 or 10 hours at a time. It really makes it nice. You can sit back, relax, and steer really easily from a distance. The rudder shaft and the rudder are also both brand new. I built a rudder out of aluminum. The shaft is a solid piece of bar stock. It's a massive solid piece of aluminum, weighs like 60 pounds by itself, but it's incredibly strong. I also strengthened the hull laminate where the rudder shaft comes through the rudder tube, and I added bracing to the rudder tube, so it's really, really strong. And it fixed the original factory problem of the rudder flexing and causing binding in a seaway. Another nice addition to the cockpit is the boom tent. There's just no substitute for being able to get out of the rain and out of the sun. And it goes up really quick, and it does a great job. We installed a smart plug system. It includes this receptacle, which is all stainless steel and built out of marine grade materials rather than the old style, which was really prone to starting fires. The new smart plug system also includes a thermal shutoff, so if it overheats, it literally disconnects itself until it cools. This is our manual bilge pump. The original bilge pump from the factory was here as well, but it was an old style that was really prone to corrosion and just didn't work very well. The new one's not only larger, but completely corrosion resistant, so it'll be good for another 30 years. And it's really easy to pump a lot of water really quickly. And it's handy to be here in the cockpit, so you can still be keeping a watch or sailing the vessel, making corrections in an emergency. This is the exhaust temperature alarm. Gives you an early warning if you have a water flow stoppage. By the time your engine overheats and the alarm sounds, it's really too late, but this will tell you right away when the water stops. Also added bars to the front hatch. Front hatches are notorious for being able to be pried open easily. So we added a set of bars on hinges with a padlock. So we can still open it, drop it down if we want to pass things through, but it gives us a great sense of security when we're sleeping at night or when we're away from the boat. We don't have to worry. I converted the original mast step into a hinge step, so we can actually put the mast up and down on our own. It's pretty slick. The whole deal takes about an hour to put it up and down. Ericson Yachts was good enough to make the boat with a big 1/2-inch aluminum plate embedded about this big, pretty big aluminum plate right under the mast step. So it's just a really bomb-proof way to build it, and it gives us the opportunity to tap these bolts directly into that aluminum plate. So it's really strong and secure, but it also goes up and down on its own really easily. Here you can see the cable for the lightning grounding system. Bolts right to the mast, goes straight down to the dissipator plate below the hull. The standing rigging here is all brand new. Shrouds, forestay, backstay, it's all brand new, made by Rigging Only. And we also upgraded the chain plates. The original chain plates had some issues historically, and so we upgraded. They're newly sealed. There was about a 1/4 inch of deck rot around them that I also repaired. It was about the only rot on the whole boat, but that's completely fixed, and they're much stronger than the originals, so nothing to worry about with the standing rigging either, all brand new. I've done a lot of work on the mast, a lot of new wiring. The masthead units are all brand new. New VHF cable running up the mast, new antenna on top of the mast. The spreader tips are brand new. The original spreader tips were plastic and I didn't trust them, so we had new aluminum ones cast just for the spreader tips. The LED mast lights are brand new. It's a tricolor along with an anchoring light that's extremely bright. We're always the brightest anchor light in the anchorage. And we've also got a big beefy lightning rod up on top extending above everything else up there. So that ties you for a lightning strike directly from the top all the way to the bottom. This is the winch we use to hoist the mainsail. So the main halyard goes right on here. Originally it was not a self-tailing winch, which was kind of a pain. So we spent the money to upgrade to a self-tailing winch, and now it's really, really easy. I also rebuilt the rope clutches. They were just a little bit old and cranky when we got the boat, so I put new levers in all of the clutches and rebuilt the parts inside and cleaned them up, and they work really, really well now. You can either just lock a rope off, or you can use it like an actual clutch. You flip it forward and it pulls in one direction but won't go out the other. This is our instrument cluster. We've got our GPS chart plotter, which is linked to our AIS radio, so it puts AIS targets right on the screen. You can contact them directly with the radio. You can also determine if you need to change course and monitor all traffic. This is also connected to our EPIRB, giving it a GPS signal right on startup, so the EPIRB doesn't have to wait for 2 to 3 minutes to get a good GPS fix. Another safety feature there. We added the remote microphone for the radio. This is just essential. We tried to use the radio down below, but trying to reach around the corner and grab it, you can't see, you can't steer. You just absolutely have to have a radio in the cockpit. And this one is really easy to use. It's got good sound, and it's really intuitive with the buttons. It's really a great setup. We replaced the old plastic door aid vents with brand new stainless ones. I added these backrests, and they make life in the cockpit so much easier, especially when you're heeled over sailing on long trips. Makes a really nice spot to not only relax, but take a nice little nap when you're underway. Really adds to the comfort of the cockpit. We added 5 solar panels altogether. Each one is on its very own charge controller. Super efficient and also redundant, so if one were to go out, the rest still work. The panels on the stern back here can actually tip up or down to track the sun. The other 3 solar panels are on top of the Dodger. I was really concerned with putting all of the solar panels in places where they wouldn't get in the way, and also where they just weren't ugly. This turned out great. They never get in the way, we never lean against them. Most importantly, they provide plenty of charging for our systems. The swim step is probably my favorite addition to the boat. It's made such a difference in our trip. It's just so much easier to gain access to the water. You can sit here with your feet in the water. You can get in and out of the dinghy easily. Probably most importantly, you can put the engine on the dinghy without any sort of weird acrobatics. It's really strong. It's actually built with marine grade Ericson foam and fiberglass epoxy. It only weighs about 35 pounds, but it adds so much usefulness to the back of our boat. The swim step actually bolts onto the transom, so in the event of a collision or damage, it can actually be unbolted for repair. It's also got a watertight access hatch and a considerable little bit of storage underneath, so there's another little spot you could stick a few items in there. We replaced our old glass port lights with cell cast acrylic. This is the good stuff. It lasts really long time in the UV, and it's really strong. It's not soft and flexible like polycarbonate. I was really fearful with the old glass ones that we'd end up with a real mess in our hands someday. The safety glass, when you brakes, it turns into all those tiny little squares, and it would just be an absolute nightmare if you broke one at sea. The inside is finished off with the aluminum trim that was originally the exterior trim piece, so it looks nice and finished as well. And we've got a nice set of curtains in there. We're so happy with the upgrade. And the old ones were always prone to leaking from day one. Even new at the factory, people had trouble with those. These aren't going to leak. They've got a very large sealing surface compared to the old ones, and they're much stronger. The Lifelines are all brand new. We went with bare stainless steel wire for longevity, and it's got a really nice soft feel to the hand. I don't know why people ever chose that plastic crap. We upgraded to the new over-center Pelican hooks. These are so much better than the old style. The old ones frequently would come loose on me, and I just about went for a swim a few times. But these ones are much better functioning. They lock a lot more securely, and it's also easy to put a little bit of tape around the round part of the handle right here to lock them closed. The zip tie or something would also work. So if you're on a long passage, not going to be using them, it's easy to lock them off. The sails are brand new. The mainsail is a fully battened mainsail, which is so much better than our old partial batten. And it's also built out of a much heavier fabric. The sailcloth is heavy duty, it doesn't flutter in the wind near as easily, and the boat actually sails a lot better with the new sails. The fully battened mainsail by necessity needs roller bearing cars on the batten connections, but we requested roller cars between the battens as well. It's so nice. The mainsail goes up and down so easily. There's no catching, no dragging. If you release it, it just falls down, and you can hoist the sail all the way to the top by hand. It's really fantastic. We love our sail. The old foresail was in good condition, but when you rolled it up partially, like even a quarter of the way, it had terrible shape. This we can roll up 2/3 of the way, and still has impeccable shape. Really fantastic. So we love the new jib, and because we have inline shrouds, the boat sails dead downwind much easier than most boats. You can put the mainsail boom all the way out to 90 degrees, and put the jib out on the other side with a spinnaker pole, or with our little jib pole, and you can sail really any direction downwind. It's so easy. We're extremely happy with our anchor, and it fits on our bow really nicely. The Vulcan has a nice short shaft, so it fits in our anchor locker, and it performs incredibly well. It always sets within its length, and it's never given us any trouble at all. The boat came with a really bulletproof bow ruler, so no modifications were needed there, except for a new hoop to hold the new anchor. It's a little bit taller to accept the curve of the Rockna anchor. Basically the Rockna anchor comes up and then attaches right in these grooves. This is an aluminum plate I made, and it holds that anchor just incredibly well. This was actually recommended to us by Rockna anchors, and it is just the only way to set up an anchor like this. It's just fantastic. The original anchor locker was not big enough. It was actually a pan insert. Like all the other pans I've talked about cutting out, they were just for convenience at the factory. They were not the optimal way to do things. The pan was this wide, and it only came down to about where that rope is. That rope is taking up about half, or about just over 1/3 of the compartment down there. It goes all the way down almost to waterline, and there's an incredible amount of space in there. With the old pan, there was no way you could get an anchor and the rode in there. This is 300 feet of anchor rode in here, and it just it works so much better. It's also a self-draining design. There's a drain hole at the bottom, and right here is a completely watertight crash bulkhead, so if you were to impact something, no water would be getting into the cabin. And last but not least, I put a latch on the anchor locker. It's nice when you're underway to know that's not going to flip up in a wind or catch a boarding sea, so that keeps everything nice and secure.